Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Hello, Tracy.
Hey, Amy.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I'm just jumping in.
Do it.
We've recorded 50 episodes. This is our 51st episode.
I know. We did it. Two people with really strong Sagittarius in their chart. We did it.
Oh my gosh.
And here, it just dawned on me, this is our last post of 2021. We started in the first week of January, and our last post will post on December 27th. We did a whole year, right?
We did.
I now understand that one of the things I hate the most in life is how December does not exist to the media, and how everything is top 10 and accomplishments and here's what we did and where we came from, what we did. And I was like, I was there, I lived it, I don't care anymore. But now here I am being like, oh my God, it's been a year, it's been 50 episodes. I now understand why they are so reflective.
Because you know what? It deserves reflection. I honestly, maybe some things you think, does that actually? But I don't think I've ever thought of it in those terms. But this to me deserves reflection. It feels like honoring something that has been completed, right? Whether that's this year of podcasting, this year in general, right?
Right. So this show is not meant to be a best of the show. I want to get our stats up. I encourage you to go and listen to the year of shows. They're great. We have a lot of really great topics. We reference them all the time. Please go and listen. But in thinking about what I want to do in the new year and what I want the new year to be, it just kind of dawned on me. And I've had, I know a lot of people have done this and have considered it before, but there are 52 weeks in a year. And while that's not a big number, it's not a little number. And we have 52 Saturdays. What do you want to make of them? We have 52 Mondays. What do you want to make of them? Right? 365 seems like too many days. But we have 52 of this, 52 of this, 52 of this. And so when thinking about what I want to do, I kind of have to think about what I've already done. And a lot of times I don't reflect at the end of the year, because then I also kind of have to think about all the things I didn't do that I said I wanted to do. And I have to acknowledge that in some areas I am still very much where I was the last time I thought about this, through no faults but anyone's of my I don't even know what that saying is. Through no fault but my own. There we go. I found it. So since it's our podiversary, the solstice or winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere just occurred, and then the new year is upon us. Is it terribly cliche to want to do a reflection show?
And see, I don't think it is. Just like I said, I think it deserves the reflection that we want to put on it. I don't know.
Okay.
All of a sudden I was like, wait, what? Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I have some reflection questions for consideration for you.
Okay. And just so everyone knows, I am not looking at the notes.
She does not know the questions I'm going to ask. And I did not come up with answers prior to hitting record on this.
Good
so
for you.
we do put a little effort into the show, right? We each create an outline and we walk through kind of the experiential and rational aims. We hope, the outcome we want to come from why are we recording this and why should people want to listen to it? What do we want people to get out of it? And we walk through it together, and you get to think a little bit about your own responses, add some of your own notes. And I just have questions. I just have some words, and
I
just have some words, a lot of words. I mean, come on, let's be honest. We usually do an hour of words. But I would like to go through them with you. And at first it'll just be personal. And so I hope everybody else kind of either pauses or answers in time with us, or goes back and thinks about it later. And then we'll also do a couple for the show because we are gonna keep doing this, right? That should have been an off-air question. Is it a end of year end episode? No. Okay.
No,
great,
we're gonna keep doing this. Yeah.
All right. I hope we maintain this attitude by the time this is done.
Yeah. By the time this is done, I'm going never, ever again.
Okay. So, now that the sun is setting, if you're watching me on YouTube, it looks like I'm on fire behind me.
I like it.
I tried to create some ambiance because the boundaries episode, if you watch on YouTube, you can tell I didn't pay attention to the time of day before I hit record. I was nowhere within reaching distance of a light switch or a lamp. And so you just see me fall and descend into darkness in real time. And so today I was like, I have some time, but like that big yellow orb right there, that's a pile of beautiful starlights that I did not think ahead of how it would appear once the sun did set. So I'm just gonna, I'm glowing.
Like yeah.
This is my aura. Oh man, I ruined it. I could have just been like, oh, okay. Did 2021 take you where you thought you would go?
Oh, no.
I love it.
Well, wait. Okay, wait. I feel like this question is nuanced. So obviously my knee-jerk reaction was no, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I thought it would be a different direction. The fact that we're still maintaining the podcast is a bonus for that. But as far as other parts, I didn't think, no, it didn't. I didn't think we'd be where we're still at.
Mine was a hell no. So
oh yeah, no kidding.
I mean, I had a lot of start stops. So we both personally, or I don't know if you did this past year, I'm pretty sure you did, but we do more of a word of a year, like an intention for the year, like a word, like if it was to summarize all of your goals together, or how you want to feel, your vibe, like just take the New Year's resolutions out of it, take all the SMART goals out of it, like just a word to help you with your decision making, help you keep going, help you remember your motivation, all of that stuff. And I had to look mine up twice. I know I looked it up last week when I was preparing the episode and I was like, oh, I'll remember. And then when I was like, nope, no wonder it didn't go anywhere this year, because even within a week's time, let alone a year's time, you have drifted so far away.
Yeah.
Do you remember what my year is? My word of the year?
Was it fun?
Oh God, it should have been. You're now in charge of setting my word of the year. You have some new organizational responsibilities. I am adding that to the accountability chart.
Okay.
No, it was accomplishment.
Okay, that's right. It wasn't. I kept thinking, no, it was more like organizational.
We talked a lot about joy this year. Like I think that was more some middle of the year stuff. Like, and it was something I identified. Now that you say that, I mean, that was a great guess. No, in preparing all of my stuff for Yule last year and New Year's and the show and creating, we went through a whole thing of like defining who we were, what parts of that we wanted to bring to the show, defining the show. And I just realized like I have a lot of goals that keep carrying over year to year to year. And I, was having kind of some superficial change, but big change in my life of a lot of changing jobs, promotions, changing employers, and buying a house and all this stuff that every 6 months to a year, those are great reasons to interrupt goals. But at the same time, like I've had some of those goals for 5 years and I was like, this is the year coming off of the year we just had of like a lot of isolation and just kind of downtime. Like, let's do it. Let's cross them off. Let's get going. And then my body was like, bet.
Actually, I'd like to change that answer, Tracy.
And so I became one with my couch this year. Maybe that was a goal of theirs. Maybe that couch missed me. And after successfully quitting TikTok and a whole bunch of other social media, cold turkey in this past spring, being like 2020 is done, let's do this. That month of like, I'm going to check some things off this list resulted in me pushing my body too hard. And then just a succession of injuries and illness and things like that. And my lovely accountability partner from the library just brought up like if you had to summarize your past year, it's rest, and that's okay. And you needed it. And so I think that's a beautiful way to put it. Like my word of the year became rest, and how ironic that it started with accomplishment. And so maybe maybe the universe is like, hey, maybe those aren't your goals anymore. And I've talked about that in the past too, about shedding some of that stuff and letting it go. And maybe it's okay to, at the end of the year, not have like a list of here's 5 things I accomplished. And to just, when talking to people and like, hey, what's new? What's up? Just looking at them and being like, I just lived life slow this year, and just being okay with that.
Ooh, I love that. I lived life slow this year.
Life slow. But if you had to summarize your past year personally with just one word, or if you want to start with, if you recall what your word for 2021 was.
So I didn't read past this part, but before you told me not to read, I had read the question.
Yeah.
So I had read the question, what was your word of the year? And I went, dang, what was my word of the year?
What was it? Right.
So just like you, I was like, oh crap. Why didn't I write that down? Didn't I make it a sign? Like, so then I was thinking, and I didn't try and look it up. I was just like thinking, what is my word? And honestly, I don't know if this is right. I know for sure this was one of the 3 words that were possibilities.
I think you did have 3 words. Magic.
I didn't have 3, but what usually happens is 3 will be like here. And then I answer these questions about each one. Like, what would my year look like if this was my word of the year? So then once I answer all the questions, then I choose the one word. And I want to say magic, which I hope that was, because in a way, this year reflected that word, because I feel as if I opened myself up to more magic. But if I were going to look back on the year and say what word encompassed my year, it might actually be something odd. It might be adventure, but like a really kind of bad one. I mean, not the greatest one ever, but because
the kind people write about, Amy, nobody wants to write about an extended camping trip in the woods where nothing happened.
Exactly. Exactly. So adventure, which it does encompass a lot of unexpected things and having to navigate difficult times, and like winning sometimes, losing other times. And so I don't think it's bad. It was maybe navigate is also a good word. I'll stick with those.
Navigate. I love how you went from adventure to navigate as though you didn't prepare in advance.
I did. I didn't. Nope. Navigate just actually came to me.
I liked magic when you said it, not just because the word is such a fun word and such a beautiful concept to think of, but because even if the year went differently, it's something you could still find throughout the year. And even if you had some external things getting in the way, had you remembered your year, right? Your word, you still could have been like, magic seems a little less daunting than mine, it was meant to be motivating. It was meant to remind me, you have goals, get off your laurels. Like, do you still want to do the thing? Right. Like, stop being overwhelmed. You set these for yourself. This is supposed to be fun. Yeah. But it became like a verb, right? Like action, whereas yours was just more like a state of being and like what you could look for in the world. And I guess my year is reminding me of like different ways to look at accomplishments. Maybe thanks universe, like you've brought in that for me. But what would you say you learned this past year?
Wow. I think I learned, and I feel like this is an ongoing thing to learn, but very much this past year, I learned to release control.
Hmm.
Again and again, that there are so many things you just can't control, and it's okay.
Wow.
I guess I'm very short and sweet what I learned. I can't control other people. I can't control how other people react to situations, to me. I can't control how the organization I work for decides we're going to work or not work. I can't control, obviously, just even things that I thought I could control, like my own health. Oh, guess what? No, not always. So yeah, just like knowing, just completely releasing that.
Wow, I like that. Not only did you learn something, but then you took an action from it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
So at the start of 2021, January, I had one of the most anxiety filled months of my life. It was coming off of 9 months of isolation. Socially, I lived alone during the pandemic, and it felt like the further we got into it, other than the podcast, the less likely people were to, we had Zoom fatigue, people didn't want virtual meetings, people in my life who weren't living alone. When they got alone time, they weren't going to be FaceTiming a friend, right? I knew I was connected. I knew I had people that loved me, right? But it was just a lot of time alone, and it was too cold to go and do the things I was doing before outside to distract me from it. I couldn't do my hikes or things like that. It felt like the world was falling apart. Like they called it the 4 or 5 Wednesdays of January's, right? Like our country had something going on every week. It was a new thing. And so and then just feeling helpless from that. And so I went from that in January to, by the end of August, feeling the most loved and connected and supported that I had ever been. That I've had 3 very different surgeries, 2 procedures in the past 12 months. And not once did I have to wonder who was going to pick me up and bring me to the hospital, bring me home. This most recent one, there was actually not a fight, but there were several people willing to bring me home, and the manner in which we did it and how we did it and the timing of it and what made the most sense given where people live. It's hard not to feel a burden when you've had that many things going on, but between my birthday and the number of people who showed up for me in the way that I asked for, to celebrate a milestone I had wanted in my life, to all the support I got with all of my health things. And then even more locally, like my neighbors carried my groceries in for me and mowed my lawn. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like if I could ask a favor without feeling like I had to repay it. Not that I ever kept track, but just always wondering, what was the worth that I brought to people? I felt like I was being the one that lives alone, being the one that's always the one asking, when a lot of other people don't need that because they have a roommate to help them carry furniture. They have a spouse to, take them to the hospital and things like that. It's hard not to feel like you're always asking. And I don't know if it was the isolation of 2020 or just how great of a social circle and family I've built up and cultivated over time. But this year just felt like I learned how supported I am.
Yeah. What a journey.
So after a year of complete isolation, But still knowing I'm connected, but maybe not always feeling it or seeing it, but being able to logically and rationally, show to myself that I am, to then just all of a sudden being like, this is too much. I was just reminiscing, somebody mentioned something like, oh, that'll be like the highlight of your year. And I was like, no, sir. Like, my birthday was the best day of my life. And they're like, yeah, until we showed up. And I was like, no, like there was a very cultivated list of all my favorite people. And like, you really also helped make this day fun. And so it was just nice to kind of go back to that. But then also recently, my most recent hospital thing, I could have asked anybody to bring me to the ER. I could have asked anybody to bring me home. The number of text messages and check-ins that I got, it really got to the point where by the end of the week when I was home, I was just like, I will let you all know if I am not fine. Like I think I even asked you during your health scare, like, are you tired of being asked how you're doing? Because I can empathize with that and I can start conversations a different way. And so I loved learning that. I think I always knew it, but like it was really
it's nice to have it handed to you though, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, it was like a lesson, right? Like I always knew it, but like it played out in front of me in real time this year. So although there were definite peaks and valleys throughout the year and it didn't go how I wanted it to, I was recently talking to my physical therapist who is helping. I signed up for assisted stretching with a physical therapist because I want to get my body back, is kind of how I've been phrasing it as the goal. I'm taking my body back, that I've had a year of just laying around.
Okay. I just want to emphasize that I love how that is how you're putting it. I'm getting my body. I want to get my body back.
I'm taking my body back.
You're taking it back. And I love that. So it gives you sort of like that you are in charge of it, right? I love that. Okay.
Continue. Well, in a sense that it's an action. So much like you learned, I was forced to learn I am not in control. You hear somebody had 3 surgeries and 2 procedures, all for different things in the course of 13 months. And you think, God, what's wrong with you? Every single physician I've spoke to, even most recently, is just like, you're so healthy. We didn't know what was wrong. Like this shouldn't be happening. And even the physical therapist. So what I said to him, when we were working through something that should not have been as hard as it was, he's like, you're too young to be going through this. And I was like, well, thank you. Cause you don't usually hear that about somebody in their 30s, right?
Right.
Unless it's from somebody older. I said, it has been a really hard year having a body. It's just having a body has been so hard. And what this year, I guess another thing I learned this year, and I've heard this before in the spiritual community, but I'm bringing it back down to earth in a sense for myself, is it's a big deal to have a body. And that part of that for me, like I'm taking my body back, like, yes, I have to acknowledge I'm not in control and some things are just going to happen. And there's aging and aging gracefully and, doing what you can to support that. But like, it's not, I have to work out. I get to work out. It's not.
I love that too, that you said it's a big deal having a body. And I think for so many people, it's just taken, of course, we just take it for granted because it's
all relative,
life,
right? Yeah.
Right. But when you truly are embodied and then treat that body with the respect it deserves. Yeah, I love that, Tracy.
Yeah. And so I don't remember what the question was. Those are my learnings. And so I guess it's also, so the next question that I had was, what did 2021 give to you? And so I think both of my examples right there, just both the connection and then just recognize having a body is a big deal, was kind of the gift out of the valleys, right? And some, I once did a timeline of my life for a psychology class. And there were several years in the timeline when I couldn't think of a single thing that had happened. Not only did I not have any major milestones, but I couldn't remember where I worked, where I was living. Like I had to look stuff up. And then even from a milestone perspective, and I was getting really hard on myself about like, why didn't you achieve that year? Or why wasn't a milestone? Or like, why aren't you living your life? Right? Like having a life is a big deal. And I just remember my professor was like, those were just, you need those gap years to be able to have the milestone years. And like my classmates helped me, and I was so thankful for them because we looked back and we're like, well, this is the year you applied to grad school, right? So that doesn't feel like a milestone because it's not when you started it, but that was a lot of work. Like I did do things in those years. And so I feel like 2021 just continued to give to me. And I think, sometimes I feel like I'm the same person that like I maxed out my intentional self-growth in some areas a couple of years ago. And I'm just singing the same tune of, like, hey, thanks, Past Tracy, for getting us here emotionally. And then I think back and I'm like, me being able to look at 2021 and be like, wow, you did nothing but lay on the couch, but also be like, but you took it as a rest. And here's what that gave you. And here's how you'll be able to use it versus like, man, 2021 Tracy was so lame. And now I'm like 2021 Tracy's setting the stage for 2022 and we'll never forget this year. Like it was a huge part, I feel like, in what's to come. Yeah. So what did 2021 give to you?
Yeah. So I'm sitting here going, what did it give to me? What did it give to me? What did it give to me? And I feel like what it gave to me was more, it gave to me this expanse of time.
I no longer am I saying I became one with my couch. I had an expanse of time and I just existed in it.
Yeah. So I had this expanse of time to actually read things that interested me, do things that interested me, create things that interested me.
Oh my God, 2021 gave you.
Yeah. Oh God, I love that.
It gave me
I do think that I can it was 2021 where I was standing in the kitchen after, 4 days of vacation. And all of a sudden I was just like hit with this epiphany of this is the exact feeling that I have been searching for to have my whole life. Like, this is it. Like, this was the perfect day. And this whole vacation was the perfect, like, this is how I want my life to be. So I feel like it really opened my eyes up that this perfect life is absolutely attainable, and you attain it time and time again. Just because every day isn't perfect doesn't mean that you don't have a wonderful life, right?
All the days add up to make the wonderful life.
Exactly. It also gave me, I have a really good relationship with all my kids. And even when my middle child, Joe, was struggling the most, we still had a good relationship. But I will say what 2021 did is that it not only gave me myself, but it gave me his true self back. And so the discussions we have and are able to have now, we have like 40-minute phone conversations, and we run the gamut to, philosophy and the correct supplements and like motivation. I mean, we talk about everything. And so I just like it that it gave me him back as well.
That's so beautiful. Okay, so some of these next questions, you might notice a theme. Call it out when you hear it.
All right.
Oh. Have you lived more brightly this year?
Oh.
That took no time at all.
I was worried I wouldn't catch the theme. So I think overall I have, even though I'm doing less, I think this is going to sound so cheesy, but I'm living more. Like, I do think I'm living more brightly. What about you?
No.
Okay.
No. I feel like though, this is one of those years where I talked in the last episode about how I kind of want to thaw out my moxie. So when you think of like everybody has kind of like an energy center and energy core, I think it's one of those years where that main part, it's just gathering energy, right? So I don't think I extrovertedly lived brightly, but I definitely feel like I'm starting to be able to fan that fire to help radiate.
I love everything you're saying.
I've had a few epiphanies in the past few weeks. So I like to ask myself questions before bed or before meditation. It's something as an introvert I've always kind of done where like I'll just let subconscious Tracy figure out the answer. And I don't like everybody thinks I'm so profound and I'm so smart and I must like journal all the time and write this. And no, I just make future Tracy work it out in just something in the background. It's not up here at all. Best part of my day.
Hey, future Tracy, here. How's this look? You figure it out.
I've had last year in 2020, I was working with kind of like a spiritual life coach, Nicole Nardoni. She does like these feminine alchemista kind of one-on-ones. And she said something that was like a message from my guide and like what I need to focus on to make my goals happen. And it was exactly what was in the back of my head that I was ignoring.
Are you kidding me? And
no, and it was,
can you share it?
It was get your house in order.
Oh,
that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but for the specific goal I kind of had in mind, it is both a psychological roadblock and like a mental roadblock and like a reason why I wouldn't want to be inviting in what I wanted for that goal. So that's still there because this year, obviously my body was like, you're not working on your house. You're not working on your home. You're not getting anything in order. You are laying on your stomach all day, every day. But so there have been some new kind of epiphanies and stuff that I'm not super ready to kind of share yet. But a lot of it is around like getting back into meditating and specific ones. And I've been having these kind of memories and flashes and stuff of those bright and shiny days that I talk about, like those days when things, not only do I feel good, but I feel like I'm noticed more. I feel like I'm drawing in more of the people that I want to draw in and things just kind of happen and life just kind of flows. And although, you know, I've called it hustle, like moxie to me, what I love about it and why I miss having it, was it wasn't an intentional, like it wasn't forcing it. Like I've definitely had days where I have been like, you have to hustle and you have to grind and you have to get this done. Like you have to create that energy and I've done it. And then you pay for that later on. Right. Whereas to me, like my moxie and my bright and shiny days is just this self-sustaining fuel source. That's just like this driver and this energy. And I've been thinking about like, how do I call that back in? And what was I doing on those days or those times in my life? And just meditation and Kundalini yoga just came back in. Whereas at the start of this year, I was like, we have to meditate and we have to do Kundalini yoga. And it was like, every time I did it, like just something went wrong or I didn't feel good or my body hurt. And it was just like, it was like I was forcing it. And then I was getting, and now it's more like, and now we're ready. And now we're ready. And so I feel like I will be able to live more brightly by getting more into a routine, but by just more living in that flow and not going through that list of all the stuff that we say you can do to be your brightest self. You know, one of our future episodes, one of our listeners recently said, like, I haven't listened in a little while, not because I don't like you, but because I feel dim. I don't feel my brightest self. Right. And I was like, well, now I feel like the ass because I feel dim all the time. And I thought I talked about that. And like, none of this is like a prescription. And so I wholeheartedly feel that, but I also feel like right now I'm turning on that light. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that for 2022. We'll see what December 27th Tracy has to say next year. If it's the same song and dance, who knows? Okay, next question. And you kind of answered this already.
Okay.
Did you step more into yourself inch by inch?
Yeah. Yes. Well, you kind of answered it for me when you said, you allowed yourself to come in this year. So yes,
I was going to say that
really,
perfect day example was just
that
like, I
perfect
remember.
day.
Yeah.
Oh, and so what's great about that is I can always call that up in my memory if I need that. But I also allowed myself to share myself more openly with other people. So not only to, because I feel like sometimes I can compartmentalize and like be one way with this person and be another way with that person. And now clearly, of course, if you're like at work, you do sort of have to present yourself in a certain way.
We have work, Amy.
Yeah. But I have noticed I've even allowed work Amy to be, in like emails, be more like, "Welp, this thing happened," and literally say it that way. WELP. Welp, sorry about that, but this thing happened. And I notice when I'm just being more me with more people, I get a response that I feel is more them.
Yeah, when you're genuine and authentic, other people are genuine and authentic. I love that.
Yeah. So yes, I think I did. Yes, thank you. Fun. Wow.
How did you invest in your own radiance?
Well, how did I invest? I feel like I invested time into it, intention into it, and probably the times that I was like, time to meditate, allowing space for like, this is what I do. I go for a walk and I meditate without forcing. It was just like, this is what I do. This is who I am. So now it's time to walk. So don't schedule anything during that time. Right. So investing, I would say, was like, I don't want to do that. Or yes, I do want to do that. So when, a friend whose friendship has been recultivated, a good friend from high school who now we are very much in each other's lives again, she said, we should meet. Let's actually travel to meet and let's spend time with each other. And I have to tell you that, past me was very comfortable with saying, no, I can't do that. No. And even right now, me is, I'm still sort of a little COVID shy right now where I'm like, no, I can't do that. But I feel like I was like, yes, this is something that I want to do and I deserve to do. And also maybe far past me would have been, I would have worried about bringing it up to Rick, right? I would have been like, oh, is he going to get I better not say anything. Oh, how can I do this? Whereas now it was like, hey, we were talking and this came up and I think it might be fun. You don't have to answer how you feel about it now, but here's something to think about.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, that was easy, Amy. I'm wondering why you spent all those years being like weird and worried about things. So
it sounds like, some of my next questions, just if people listening want to go through it, you kind of just answered it. So what did you shed? Sounds like you shed a lot of some things you had prescribed unto yourself and others. Where did you grow? What did you realize you want? So I'm just going to move on to the last question.
What just came to me? Sorry, before you answer that last question, I think it would be great for some of our posts or a post to actually have all the questions in it. Okay,
I like it.
Cool.
I like it.
All right.
So yeah, follow us on Instagram at The Brightly Podcast.
And maybe I'll post it on Facebook too, if I ever get around to that, folks.
And I'll check our email. What's the word or theme for your 2022 shaping out to be and why? I have mine. I'm ready.
Do?
So yeah, I do. Okay. Go. So it started with something I saw on TikTok. And it's so funny. And I don't, if you listen earlier to, my word of the year being accomplishment, right? Without knowing accomplishment was last year's, my 2022, where it started, was highest self. Ooh. And when I first heard that, I felt so inspired, and it's in line with what we talk about in the year.
Yeah.
But it began to feel heavy and goal-oriented and task-oriented, and as though I wasn't already my highest self. And then when I had all those realizations around accomplishment, I'm now just like, full circle gets a square. Like, you came all the way around, didn't you, there with that one? It was like 2022, the remix. So a couple podcasts ago, we brought up a future episode we plan to have about romanticizing your life. So then highest self, even before I realized that the year that wasn't, the year that was going to be accomplishment, it went from highest self to romanticize, where I was like, that's both a way to be your highest self, but also just approach every day differently, and less about like accomplishing a task or a thing, and more about how the little things add up and creating a vibe and just changing how you look at things, like preparing breakfast and washing dishes and going, like those things that, especially for those of us who are going to be continuing working from home, those things that feel like repeating the same day over and over again. Yeah, when you romanticize your life, it's a little different. And so I was like, what a beautiful theme for the year. But then the past few weeks, as I've experienced all this stuff with my body and these revelations about like where I want to go with it and what this year can really mean, depending on how I look at it, I'm kind of looking at 2022 as reconstruction.
I got chills from that. Oh my goodness.
Because I talk about, sometimes okay, so here's kind of like a journal entry of sorts of like my thought process. So yeah. I wrote, presently, I'm trying to figure out what I want the next 40 years to look like. I have a vibe in mind, but want to shake everything else up. Between the isolation of 2020 and an injury that resulted in back surgery and a lot of laying around, my old habits and hobbies fit like an old itchy sweater. I want to explore and find something new to try on, but I'm still figuring out even how to go about that or what that is. Yeah. So I bought a house just prior to my 33rd or 34th birthday, 33rd birthday. And I went out to dinner with friends, felt really loved, but ended the night alone. I live alone in my house, and I went and I had a bonfire, and I had hoped that people could come to the bonfire and we could keep celebrating and whatnot. But, we're not 18 anymore. People have families and lives and babies and partners that also want their time. And so I was just kind of walking around the fire, and just kind of reflecting. I use my birthday as my own personal New Year. So kind of reflecting on past goals and where I wanted to be, and like, why don't I have this yet? And like, why isn't this in my life? And like, why do I feel like the only, person not here? And I just, in my own voice. So I'm not like hearing voices, but like, I just heard 37, like something in me was like,
and this was when you were 33.
Okay. It was my 33rd birthday. So it gave me permission for the next few years to not strive, not make it happen, not force it. Right. Which was kind of how I feel like, if it's not happening, maybe I need to take steps, and maybe I really need to take steps is kind of where I was going with it. And so I did. I just kind of existed. I spent a solid year working on my house. I re-entered school and got a new job. Then the pandemic happened. And then, this year has become about body and things like that. And there's still just kind of like the stillness in me. And like, I talked about the Yule episode of just kind of feeling like the need to just kind of sit back and watch and experience and just be, because it feels like a big transition, a big change, a big shift is coming. And instead of wondering like, why don't I have it yet? It's been more of a, I'm going to be so thankful I had this time, or I'm going to miss this isolation. So I'm going to miss this slowness. I'm going to miss, right? Like,
yeah.
And so that goes back to like romanticize. So maybe I'll have 3 words: the highest self, romanticize, reconstruction. Right. But like, I feel like I'm building a new life. And in the past, I'd really get frustrated and upset or down on myself or overly focused on the fact that I don't have an idea of what that is. I don't, no architect has come in and drawn that up yet. I'm just like floating on this 37,
you need a life architect.
Fire. Right. Who knows, maybe 38-year-old Tracy will be, well, that was a fun 4-year experiment. Like, let's go back to the grind. But, and that's not to say that I'm not doing things and stuff isn't happening behind the scenes, but, yeah, I have a vibe, and it's time to figure out what that vibe looks like, but in a way that's more go with the flow and see what happens, and bringing more people in. So yeah,
I like that. So while you were talking, and to be clear, I was listening to you, but different words would pop into my head while you were talking. And so now I'm like, obviously I need to do my word of the year and not wait until, like February 17th to do it. But also I want to remind people that it's okay if mid-year you're like, oh, this
new word.
Yeah, you can go ahead and get a new word, but also don't do, like, maybe write it somewhere that you'll see it every day. So the words that popped into my head, the first one was brave. The second one was authentic or authenticity. And the third one, and I think you'll like this, Tracy, was crone. But
which goes back into authentic, right? Like we've talked about it in past episodes, how you've had this reclaiming of what it means to age.
Yeah.
And age well.
And so the reclaiming is also kind of interesting, but so clearly I haven't chosen one, but I love your reconstruction. I love that. And whether you decide on all 3, it's the great thing is you get to decide that, right? You get to decide that. I love it.
Okay.
As soon as we're done, I'm picking my word.
I love it. So at the end of our last episode on Yule, your prompt for the tarot was, what do we need to remember? And so I love that. I was wondering if you would be willing to do a live pull for what the 2022 incoming energies are.
Yeah. All right.
So while she thinks about that, I'm just going to preview. 2022 is season 2, my Brightleys. Oh, Amy, can you keep a secret? Me too. So join us in the new year for more soul-driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. We will post more about future shows as we get closer to them. But as we get ready to end, Amy, do you have an incoming energies or something for people to reflect on for 2022?
Wow. Very interesting. I got the Chariot. So this card in this deck, typically a traditional Chariot card has a person who's in a chariot with 2 sphinxes in front of it. I can't get the glare off of this one. This is a horse pulling a chariot across the universe with what looks like almost like, do you get kind of a lotus flower?
That sense? Is definitely a lotus flower in his chariot.
And then stars, these shooting stars underneath it, which the traditional chariot has stars attached to it as well. But one of the things with the chariot is that the chariot can be a few different things. One is that you have actually more control than what you think you do. And with your willpower, you can achieve things. But the other thing too, because in, once again, the traditional chariot, the driver has no reins. So it's
you don't get to steer, my friend. You just get to pick the vehicle.
Right. But it's a very lucky card And it's a very, as you can see, it's a swift card, especially
about
from
movement.
from this deck. So I feel like the sky's the limit. The sky is the limit here.
Sky is the limit. I love that. Well, if that and this episode spoke to your soul, please share it with a friend. And if you have time, please give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day.
A new year.
A new year.